is coming back to give us another movie. Presumably, he's going to ignore the second movie, but I don't know if that necessarily will play into his favor, because, I don't know, the second movie's not bad. Welcome, nerds. This is another episode of The Week in Nerdom, the one and only nerd news show that matters. Well, okay, maybe that's a little blustery, but either way, in today's episode, we have the Fallout TV series coming out of hiding. We have Disney getting Doctor Who. We have another major DC shakeup, as well as Doctor Doom and Silver Surfer rounding out the rumor mill. So join me before we get to the news and the things. Let's take care of the housekeeping. In housekeeping, we have a little bit, not much. We should be on for the second episode this week. So I realized after I posted last week's episode that apparently the last Saturday episode never got published to the other outlets besides just the YouTube. So my apologies to all of the audio outlets, and I think there's one video outlet that didn't get it as well. Many apologies. I mean, I'm a one-man show. Sometimes mistakes happen, and I get busy, especially because, you know, I publish probably 15 to 18 videos a week, so that's a lot of work, and things get overlooked, and that was one of them. And again, my apologies. If you are interested, though, in the things that we talked about in there, it is up on the YouTube channel, Generally Nerdy, so go check that out, unless you're already there, in which case, hi, nerds. Either way, that, I think, is all we have for housekeeping. We are approximately 2 weeks away from the off season, so things are going to be changing for a couple of months while I, you know, do things behind the scenes and actually take a little bit of me time, because like I said, publishing this many videos and audio episodes and all that stuff a week is a little exhausting, especially considering I have a day job on top of it. So it's necessary time down at the end of the year that I take every year, but also we come back and we're refreshed, and we have the more new things to look at, and all of the extra shiny bits are polished and whatnot. So that is all we have for the housekeeping, so let's jump into that just happened. This section is, I really like the way it's going. So that being said, the trajectory for this was we're going to experiment with it before it gets to the off season. In the off season, I'll make a bunch of assets for it, and then once we come back, we're going to have ostensibly 3 episodes a week. It's going to be this main episode, it's going to be the secondary live episode, and then it's going to be That Just Happened, where we talk about all of the things that happened in the last week, which is the section you are joining me for, which is super rough and all that jazz right now. So it will be better come January, but thank you very much, nerds, for joining in the conversation. So let's get into the section, as it were. So this week, we had another episode of Interview with the Vampire, and this one is noteworthy. So eventually we're not going to talk about every individual episode for That Just Happened, but this is pretty dang noteworthy because this was the introduction of the other major force. I'm not going to say main character necessarily for this story, but major force for this story as far as the Anne Rice novel was concerned. Claudia is a force of nature, and there's no denying that. It's the original Claudia that was in I believe the book came out in 79, might have been 76. The original Claudia was written into the book as a sort of a representation, I guess is a good way to say it, a representation of Anne Rice's daughter, who died at a very young age. I believe she was 5 when she passed. So Anne Rice, rightfully so, being a mother, was pretty torn up about the loss of her young child, and so she, in order to deal with it, put her into the book. So that's why the character of Claudia is so young. And that the youth kind of flavors the character in that There are a lot of issues when you are stuck in a 5-year-old body and you've been on this earth for over 80 years. Like, things start to happen psychologically that really screw with you. So that is the kind of the base essence of who Claudia is in the book. That's kind of what we got in the original movie in '95 as well, with Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. And played by Kirsten Dunst. And in the movie that happened again in '95, she was 12 years old, I believe, is how they build it, but still. She might have been 11. She was still effectively just before puberty, so you could kind of still get away with a lot of the same stuff in that she's stuck in a child body and, you know, has been around for some time and kind of goes crazy because she never gets old. Nothing ever, you know, changes for this person, this character, this vampire. So now in the series that's airing on AMC, we just got introduced to their version of Claudia. And there are actually a fair amount of things that I really do appreciate about this character as seen through the lens of the AMC series. First of all, I really appreciate that they pivot the point of view for the introductory episode. She becomes the narrator effectively, whereas Louis was the narrator previously. For this episode, for about 90% or so of this episode, she is the narrator. So the writer finds her diaries and is given her diaries, I guess, by Louis, and starts to craft his story from her point, or starts to read her diaries, so that's why we get her point of view, but is crafting his piece based on her diaries for this episode, right? That's the meta story. The actual story of Claudia, they attempted to play a similar card with the child body thing, but I believe this character is supposed to be 15 or 16. It's not a full. And this is so weird, that like territory to be discussing, but it's not. She's not fully a woman, but she is on the latter half of puberty. So like, there are womanly things about this character by the time she is turned into a vampire, and so the stuff doesn't hit the same as if she were prepubescent, as if she were a child. Though they do kind of do their own version of a lot of the things that this character is based on. Whereas they do acknowledge that yes, she is a post-adolescent teenager, so which kind of just makes her really annoying. But it also means that she, you know, there's a boy in her life all of a sudden, and when she tries to act on her feelings for said boy, she doesn't know how to deal with it, and so he ends up. I guess spoilers if you care. Sorry, I should have said that previously, but I mean, we're talking about an episode that already happened, so I feel like that should have been a not necessary thing to say. Either way, spoilers. So she ends up, you know, taking the life of this boy whom she's interested in as they're trying to do things. And so that is it's a decent way of doing it. It's not the best way of doing it, but I mean, they definitely could have gone a lot dumber with this, I guess is a fair way to put that. So I do appreciate the attempt, though the execution is kind of poor. The other thing that I really did appreciate is her relationship with Louis. They're really doing a fair job with that as well, making her very close to him. Though I feel like in the book, I read an analysis of the comparison of what happens in the book and versus the series, and how, you know, these two dichotomies are different. In the book, Louis and Lestat are, and I didn't really think about this until I read the analysis, Louis and Lestat are both effectively her parents in a lot of ways, because Louis, in a moment of weakness, drains too much from her. He doesn't mean to kill this little girl, but he's going to if Lestat doesn't step in and save her. Now, so he, he by all intents and purposes has killed this child, and Lestat has saved this child. So there's a line in the book where Louis says, "I took your life and he gave you a new one," which is why Louis feels obliged to take care of this creature so much. And Lestat is Lestat, and he never feels obliged for anything, at least at this point in his life. So that change kind of is noticeable. The fact that part of that relationship is not there is highly noticeable, because instead of Louis taking her life, it's the fire that takes her life effectively. And yes, if you want to kind of grasp at straws a little bit, it is Louis' fault that the fire is happening, so he can still ostensibly blame himself for her death, but that is like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon removed, so it just doesn't have the same impact. So that's the kind of the basic things that are working for Claudia. I think the thing that isn't working for Claudia, unfortunately, is the actress. I don't know, there's something about the way a 20-year-old is told to act by I'm assuming some sort of 40 to 50-year-old to act as a teenager. There's a lot lost in that translation. Her accent is kind of comes and goes. Sometimes it's super thick, sometimes it sounds very fake, and not really a whole lot in between, and it's never really good. It's never like, oh, that sounds like somebody from Louisiana, that sounds like somebody from the American South. I never get that from this actress. So it has nothing to do with any other, uncontrollable circumstances, aside from the fact that I just don't think she has the acting ability to pull off what they're trying to pull off. I don't think many people would have the ability to pull off what they're trying to pull off with this character, because they've changed so much about this character. Who is this character anymore? So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with Interview with the Vampire. I'm still digging it. I still, like I said, there is a lot. I love this Louis. I think this is probably my favorite interpretation of Louis. Jacob Anderson is brilliant in this role. I think Sam Reed is also really good as Lestat. There's been a couple of points where I was taken out of the Lestat character, but really minor, really nitpicky stuff. Nothing really noteworthy at all. So by and large, I love both Jacob and Sam. I think though, the big thing with me is they were never intended necessarily to be. I think there's a missed opportunity. Let's rephrase this, because we've already said it this way. We've already said it the way I was going to say it. I think the better way to put this is there is a very big missed opportunity, because if we're trying to push this narrative of inclusivity and gender identity and yada 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 X, Y, and Z, there is sexual identity here that honestly was in the original text, and that is that vampires are pansexual. So if that wasn't a word necessarily when Anne Rice wrote the book, I'm sure that's how she would have had them describe themselves, especially but it was 1976, man. So like, yeah, it was very pre a lot of this stuff. It was very early in the LGBTQ movement, or whatever vocabulary you're supposed to use there. So I think that's a pretty big missed opportunity. In the grand scheme of things, though, relatively minor as far as who these characters are and how they're being portrayed. So that's where we're at with Interview with the Vampire. I know the That Just Happened stuff is a little rambly. I'm sorry. We're moving on into our next one, though, and that is the Winchesters have dropped episodes 1 and 2, and not gonna ramble much on this one because our feelings have been very eloquently put up into this point, in that this show is doomed from the beginning. Oh man. So I was hopeful that these episodes maybe they're going to be acted proper, maybe they're going to be directed in such a way, maybe something about the presentation of these broken characters is going to be redeeming enough that we can look past the glaring issue with the lore. I'm afraid that's not happening. It's decent. It's not terrible. It's definitely the best of all of the potential spin-offs for the Winchesters. So I guess it's got that working for it. But like, oh, there is a lot to take in. We're jumping into this. They're making a lot of assumptions. Let's go that direction. They're making a lot of assumptions as for who their audience is and how much they already know about this franchise. They're assuming you know who John and Mary Winchester are, because John and Mary Winchester, by and large, there's not a whole lot of build up to who these characters are. You just kind of get thrown into the middle of their lives, which can be good if they fix it down the road. You know, you've got to get a little bit of character development. You can't just assume that everybody likes these characters. You can't just assume that everybody wants these characters or knows that these characters are badasses. That's just not. And then on top of the fact that we don't get any character development for John and Mary, we also have the other characters in this series, and I didn't even honestly write down their names because I don't think this show is going to go very far. I think we'll make it through a season. We might get a second season, but if it goes beyond a second season, I will be very shocked, unless it gets much, much better very quickly. That being said, we have all of these other characters who are trying to get some sort of character development, however minor that might be. We are getting some sort of character development for them because they're legitimately new characters, so we have to establish who they are and how badass they really are. And it's just this muddy mess of why do I care who this version of John and Mary Winchester are? Because obviously you're creating new mythology, because the mythology that was laid out by the original series, the original Supernatural series, says that John doesn't know that Mary is a hunter until after Mary's dead. And yet, when they meet, it's because of huntery things, and now John is part of the hunter team, and it's a Scooby Gang, and oh man. And I read an interview with the head writer, I believe he was the showrunner. Again, didn't put it in the notes because I don't think it's going very far, but I read an interview with him where he's saying, I believe it was from New York Comic Con, where he said that they're not rewriting anything and they're not changing the lore. And I really think he doesn't know the lore he's working with, because the community that loves Supernatural were very vocal about this very large issue with the story, because it was very obvious from the trailers and everything that this is how it was going to go. So I will continue watching for another few episodes to see if it does get better. But like I said, that has to happen fast, and they have to do a lot of course correction in order for this fan of Supernatural to really get invested, and probably many, many other Supernatural fans as well. So our next one that just happened is American Horror Story. Oh yeah, American Horror Story episodes 1 and 2 also came out. I think actually by the time this goes up, there will be a third American Horror Story episode. And in spite of what, if you've been watching the show for a while, in spite of what you might be thinking about my interpretation of this, I'm digging this 11th season. I think this is setting up a very compelling story. The setting is what it is. I mean, we can get into the politics of that and the representation elements of that, but that's irrelevant to how good the story is. The story is there's a quality story here. There is something that is being told that actually has a little bit of weight. I think that what they're doing is they're setting up a lot of potential options. I think this is also potentially the most focused that American Horror Story has been in a very long time, because I don't see a whole lot of subplots. Yes, there are. I believe there's the main story of the killer that's killing the gay men in New York, and then there is some kind of subplot where maybe this producer guy is also killing gay men and making it look like it was the other guy. So, but they tie together. American Horror Story is notorious for not tying its plots together really at all. And it made very evident in the last season, the double feature season, where the last 5 episodes had absolutely nothing to do with the first 6 episodes. Yeah, that's not this at all. This is rather coherent and like streamlined by comparison, and a very compelling. I want to see what's going on with these characters. I want to watch the next episode, and I honestly haven't been able to say that. Well, I'll kind of give this one a caveat, but by and large, I have not been able to say that I'm interested in the next episode for an American Horror Story series for some time, since like, I don't know, Freak Show, I think, was the last time I really cared about this series. The caveat to that, though, is I really dug the first half of the double feature season. That was really good. I think the Macaulay Culkin honestly remembered how to act and did a killer job and kind of elevated a lot of the other performances. Evan Peters is always fantastic, which he hasn't been in this season yet, so I'm very interested to see who he's going to be in this season. Or he might not even be in this season. I can't remember. Either way, I'm digging it. Let's move on. Next, we're talking about the final episode of House of the Dragon, episode 10, The Black Queen. Wow. Did this show start super slow and then build into a feverish climax and then just leaves you chomping at the bit for more in season 2. It was a little transparent, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, if you're paying attention, you know that something horrible is going to happen, right? So that kind of already sets up the expectation. And then when we spend as much time as we do with Rhaenyra's children, with her eldest children, I guess, then you kind of get a feeling, all right, somebody's gonna die. And then we only spend time with the youngest of the elder 2 children and go, oh boy. And it happens in such, like, to call it satisfying, I feel like is really dark, but is kind of true. Like, oh man, this is the setup for the war. This is, all bets are off, everything else goes out the window. The only thing that matters is Rhaenyra's revenge for the death of her son, and oh my god, season 2 is going to be incredible. It's going to be and if they stay on this track. Now, notoriously, throughout this first season, they've kind of set things up and then done a time jump and then made all of that setup irrelevant. And then they did a time jump and made all of the next set of setups irrelevant. And, well, by and large irrelevant. I think there is a little bit of a through line, but really not a strong one from the beginning of this season to the end. I think the last clumping of episodes, last like 3 or maybe 4 episodes, that's all that really matters as far as the story to come. Yes, there is potentially a lot of really interesting stuff to explore in those first 6 episodes roughly, but we're just gonna forget about all of those potential avenues and move along with this war story. So it's a little less satisfying than I would want it to be, though more satisfying than I expected it to be. So we're somewhere in the middle, and it's working, and I hope they can continue that momentum through season 2. Let's move into Joe Bob. Oh god, I watched Joe Bob. The first half of the Joe Bob Halloween special was a Elvira movie, Elvira's Haunted Hills from 1980 something. And oh boy, no, 2001. It came out in 2001. Good lord. That makes it even worse. Joe Bob usually picks really cool, like relevant movies, really quality movies to a certain degree. I don't know that any Elvira movie is quality, so I don't know. I have yet to finish the Joe Bob special, the Joe Bob Halloween special, because he always does a double feature, and so far I've only watched the one. I really like his injection into the narrative of whatever movie he chooses for his specials. But I just don't think there's really a whole lot of redemption for this one. So yeah, we're gonna move next. Black Adam. I have not actually watched Black Adam, but I did think it was relevant to note that Black Adam has happened and there is a lot of fallout from this. So technically speaking, we're not gonna cover this in the rumors section because we already knew this was true. But technically speaking, a rumor was confirmed with the release of this new movie, and that is that Henry Cavill is Superman, once again, at the very least for this movie. We'll get into, other things pertaining to Henry Cavill's Superman in the rest of the episode. But and also the big thing that's coming out of this is The Rock's influence in the DCEU, now being called just DCU, which is, most of us have kind of been calling it that since the beginning, right? So the DC universe, The Rock is apparently going to have some pretty heavy influence over the cinematic side of that. I don't think he's going to play into the TV series sections at all. I don't think he's going to play into the animated stuff at all. And definitely has nothing to do with the comic books, which comic books is kind of still its own thing as far as Warner Brothers and such are concerned. But this new studio that they've created, the DC Studios, and we're going to talk about that as well once we get into the movie section. Yeah, it looked like for a hot second they were going to be giving The Rock the reins of this new, cinematic universe that they're creating effectively. He has said that he doesn't want that. He wants to be in an advisory position, which it seems that he knows how he can affect things with the most influence and least amount of commitment, I guess, is a Venn diagram that he's trying to exist in. Because he also, I'm sure, wants to be able to do other stuff that's not DC movies. So yeah, I'm sure that was kind of the impetus for that decision. But he also has been on record saying that the DCEU, now the DCU, will always put the fans first. And I think if he is in an advisory role and is taken seriously, and that is his motto, put the fans first, I think we are in line for some really fantastic DC Universe stuff. I think this could be potentially awesome. Again, haven't watched the movie yet. I hope to watch it before we meet again this Friday. More likely, though, before we meet again next Wednesday. That being said, that's what we got for Black Adam. There's one more piece of that just happened, and it is Cabinet of Curiosities over on Netflix. The first 2 episodes have dropped, and if you are a horror fan, if you are a Guillermo del Toro fan, you should be a horror fan. Wow, you just got Christmas in October. These first 2 episodes are so good, so good. The second one, not as good, but I really love Guillermo del Toro's fascination with H.P. Lovecraft, because wow, like the second episode of this is not written by Guillermo, but like he's the producer, and so whoever I didn't write down his name. The director and the writers of the second episode is almost an H.P. Lovecraft book, like reimagined, or H.P. Lovecraft story rather, reimagined. So yeah, pretty awesome, pretty freaking awesome. The first episode though is called Lot 36, and it's starring Tim Blake Nelson. You'll recognize Mr. Nelson because he's in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? He's one of the dumb sidekicks. Of course it's him. Look at him. He also was in that really not great Watchmen HBO series. He was the man with the mirror mask. And he's done, a number of other things. And just, he is really a chameleon. I think this man is an underappreciated gem. He should be in much more stuff, and just fantastic. The first episode is written and directed by Guillermo del Toro, and it is Lovecraftian horror in a way that I didn't expect. Oh my God, that was so good. So good, and legitimately creepy. Like, I mean, once you get to the Lovecraftian stuff, it becomes a totally different experience. But until you get to that point of both episodes, it's like, what is going on? This is, and they're only like 40-minute long episodes. So it's like a very effective Tales from the Crypt, where Tales from the Crypt was kind of a joke on purpose. It was dark comedy, but comedy nonetheless. This is not. This is just dark, and it's great, and you should watch it. And that is what we've got for That Just Happened. So let's talk news, shall we, nerds? In the music section, which starts us off in the regular old news stuff, I have a correction to make from the last episode. Thank you very much to user Celebrate Death on the YouTubes for pointing this out in the comments section on the Clips channel. But CKY did not break up. 96 Bitter Beings is in fact a new band and does in fact feature Deron Miller, who used to be in CKY. CKY is still a band. They do still make music. They do still tour, I think. But Deron Miller has started a new project. It's called 96 Bitter Beings. There we go. I corrected myself. I apologize that I apparently misread a lot in that story. And now we're corrected, so let's get into the rest of the music section. So we've got some new music to get out of the way, and we talked about this first one. Blink-182 is releasing new music because they're back together as a band. Tom DeLonge has returned, and we now have a new record coming out, and this first song, Edging, which we kind of sort of talked about in the last episode, that they were teasing that something was coming. Now we know what it is, and it's good. It's not bad at all. It's definitely no Dude Ranch. It's nothing quite to that level of Blink-182, but I would say Enema of the State, yeah, it's probably on par with that. Maybe a little bit better than what you would get from Enema because they're just better songwriters now. But yeah, enjoyable. I haven't enjoyed Blink-182 for such a long time. You should probably go check this one out. Speaking of things that I didn't enjoy previously but are kind of starting to change my mind, Nita Strauss has put out another new song. Last time we talked about her was David Draymond guest vocaling on it, and that was not great. But this one, featuring Alyssa White-Gluz, is honestly pretty good. Nita shreds, and she shows us that she still has the ability to shred, even though, she didn't give us that with the David Draymond song, like I said. I'm still probably not going to buy this record. I do appreciate that Nita is incredibly talented, and Alyssa is kind of like, she's got really good vocal delivery, but man, her lyrics are garbage. So like, if you're looking for deep lyrical content, yeah, you're probably not going to get that here. But if you're just looking for a good shredding good time, like this is probably that song. So go check it out. And because this is the last episode before, well, the last pre-recorded episode anyway, before Halloween, we have, I had to throw in a Halloween song, actually kind of sort of two Halloween songs. The first one is 2 Minutes to Late Night. This is, the name of the song is Monster Mosh, not Monster Mash. So it is a kind of parody or an updated version, I guess, of Monster Mash. And it's a lot of fun. So 2 Minutes to Late Night is a guy who puts together, different artists for covers and has been doing it for some time, and there's actually a fair amount of them if you want to go check it out. It's good stuff. And this time there's no real noteworthy guest musicians or vocalists or anything. He calls himself, and this is hilarious, he calls himself Guarcinio Hall, and I love it. I haven't seen anything other than music videos coming out of this project, though 2 Minutes to Late Night would imply other things. So I don't know, maybe I'm just not paying close enough attention, but either way, this is a lot of fun, so go check out Monster Mosh. And then we have the other Halloween-y kind of song, and that is Gwar. The name of the song is The Cutter. It features Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm, and this is the Gwar that I remember listening to much more than the last Gwar song we talked about. That was a lot more 80s power rock, power metal, whatever. This is a lot more just ballsy, like the metal, like I don't know, it's Gwar. Like you can't really say it's one thing or another aside from it's Gwar. And this is again a lot more in line with what you expect when you use that name. The video especially very, very bloody and gory and hilarious, and just David Brockie's presence is definitely still missed in this band, but this is putting them back on the track that he started them on. This comes from their most recent record, the new Dark Ages. It is a lot of fun. Go check out this song and actually the whole record, because Gwar is awesome. And yeah, that's what we got. And then we have tours to get to. Actually, we have one tour to get to, and it was just announced, honestly, like 2 days ago as I'm filming this, and that is Parkway Drive. They will be featuring Memphis, Mayfire, and Currents on the bill. Both bands I like a little bit better than Parkway Drive, not gonna lie. But tickets go on sale October 28th, which is Friday. There is a Blabbermouth pre-sale, which I couldn't find a link to, so I apologize, but by the time you're watching this, it'll probably be done anyway, so you're just gonna have to wait until Friday. And, oh yeah, the dates start January 31st in LA, and they run through February 18th in Orlando, so it's only a 3-week tour, but they're hitting a fair amount of places. Go check it out if you are so inclined. And then we're talking about some regular ass news. First up, we have a new band to speak of, and the name of this new band is Elegant Weapons, and they are noteworthy because they are a bit of a supergroup in the metal community. So they are featuring Richie Faulkner from Judas Priest, Rex Brown from Pantera. We have Scott Travis also from Judas Priest, and Ronnie Romero from Rainbow. So a lot of old school metal dudes in this band. All 4 of these guys are old school metal dudes. The youngest of which is Rex freaking Brown, who was in Pantera. So come on, man. How could this not be something epic? Their debut album is set to be called Horns for a Halo. It will be out sometime in the spring of next year, and the record label putting it out is Nuclear Blast, so it's going to be amazing. Just saying. Anyway, moving right along with our regular ass news, we have this is a news piece about a future news piece, because it's Serj Tankian from System of a Down saying, hey, we've got something to announce, but I'm not going to tell you anything until next year. When pressed on whether or not System of a Down was going to be putting out any more new music anytime soon, Serj said, I don't think so, but we do have a major announcement to give you next year. Also, when asked about touring, Serj very specifically said that he doesn't feel like touring is in his near future, though he hasn't ruled it out in the distant future, which may imply perhaps that System of a Down is going into the studio or going into a writing process or something along those lines, or maybe he's just going to be writing a bunch more music for himself and releasing it solo-like. Either way, we don't know until he makes that announcement or until the band makes that announcement. And no really idea on a window as to when the announcement is going to be made either, so I will keep tabs and let you know. Let's continue on, though. Our next piece also deals with new music, and this one is a little bit more concrete. Killswitch Engage is releasing another freaking record. Ever since Jesse has rejoined this band, I feel like they have been a lot more prolific with their release schedule. There's not been any major gap in between records, and I honestly think that at this point, maybe they could take a little bit of a break and let the fans catch up, because I haven't really, I've listened to all of the records that they've put out since Jesse rejoined. I'm not saying that I haven't, but I haven't digested and internalized this music yet. It takes a little bit of doing because there's so much music out there, especially now, that I don't know, I feel like if you continue to tour, which they're doing, you're staying relevant so that people still remember that they love you. So maybe take a year off and let us catch up, because wow, this output from these guys is incredible. They are going into the studio probably sometime in the beginning part of 2023, because they are, I believe Jesse said in the interview, they are finishing demoing when they get off of tour. So demoing is just the stuff that they're doing so they can get the song ideas slapped together, and then you go in the studio and record the actual studio recording, which again, very likely finishing demoing means they've got a couple of weeks of demoing once the tour ends, which I believe ends next month. I'm pretty sure it ends in November at some point. So then they've got the month of December, probably going to take it off, and then the month of January, get back into the writing process, finish up those demos, and then jump into the studio. So I would be very surprised if we didn't see new Killswitch music by the end of 23. That's the last one. The last record came out in 21, man. I'm super stoked about this. Anyway, I'm gushing. We're going to move on. That is all of the regular ass news. We have music suggestions for the episode. Our musical suggestion for this Halloween episode is Moto Greater. I'm pretty sure we've suggested this record probably within the last year or so, but it is a fantastic record. And being that it is Halloween and kind of the shtick of this band was body paint and stuff like that, then it kind of fits. So yeah, Moto Greater, self-titled record. This is where Ivan Moody from Five Finger Death Punch got his start in the music industry, and honestly, this is music that he has not been able to top since he left the band. The band has not done a whole lot since this album, so it's unfortunate, but this is gold. So go check out the self-titled Moto Greater record. Gaming and tech. We do have a bunch of follow-ups to talk about in gaming and tech because, I mean, honestly, we set this one up for follow-ups from last week because Resident Evil and Silent Hill both had special presentations about talking about new stuff. So we're going to get into that. So starting off, we're going to be talking about the Resident Evil 4 remake, which was the primary focus of the Resident Evil special presentation. Yeah, it looks great. I don't know, like, that's just a weird... Considering how epic the Silent Hill presentation was, I was expecting a lot more from Capcom, but again, it is what it is, really. There is some new gameplay mechanics that they're inputting into Resident Evil 4. You have a parry, so the dude with the chainsaw is not going to be quite as scary as he once was, though still pretty ridiculous. And that's kind of all we got on Resident Evil 4. So next we're going to jump into the Silent Hill stuff because we've got a lot here from Silent Hill. So if you don't remember from last week, or you didn't watch the Silent Hill, the transmission, the special transmission is what they were calling it, then we've got an announcement of 3 games, a series, and a movie in this special presentation. So, and ostensibly, it could be 4 games and not the series. We'll get into that in the TV streaming. Right now, we're just talking about the actual legitimate video games. And so, first on that list is Silent Hill Townfall. So, they did give us a bit of a trailer for this game. And the fandom has gone a little nuts over it, and there have been some hidden messages decoded from this in some very interesting ways. So it looks like it's going to be a prequel because of these decoded hidden messages. The first of which reads, "Whatever heart this town had has now stopped." So that comes from the spectral analysis of the audio of the trailer. So there's like some staticky stuff, and if you put it through a spectral analyzer, which basically is a different way to visualize audio on a computer, there is text inside of the spectral analyzer, and that's what it says. Whatever heart this town had has stopped. That's a little dark. And then there's some backwards talking in some of the audio as well. That backwards talking has been reversed and listened to, and they're referring to Alessa, which I didn't quite realize, I guess because I kind of fell off after Silent Hill 2, but I didn't quite realize that Alessa from the first movie also really, really deeply factors into the lore of the actual games. So I believe she started in the movie and then was translated into the game. I could be wrong. Somebody correct me if I am, please. But either way, they're talking about Alessa in that backwards audio in this broadcast. So that kind of also lends to, prequel stuff. And then I think the biggest thing is there's Morse code that was found in the audio of this trailer, and the Morse code has been decrypted, I guess, and it says, "Thy flesh is weak." So the use of the old English, though speaking of weak flesh, very much sounds like the mythology of how Silent Hill became Silent Hill. So that's what's leading the community to believe that Silent Hill Townfall, also the name Townfall, the fall of a town, kind of is in the title, right? It seems to be a prequel. Super excited about that. Let's move on. Our next game is Silent Hill F. Again, it's an F hole, so makes you think that there's going to be a strong musical presence in this. Not a whole lot is known outside of the trailer, though it is noteworthy that this is the first time we are leaving small town America and going to apparently small town feudal Japan, kind of, maybe. Small town Japan at the very least. Super interesting. Lots of flowers. The developer on this, or the story the guy who's been hired, the person, I guess, who's been brought in to develop the story is Ryu Kishi. Oh man, 07, I think is how you would say that. So that person's been attached to develop the story. I'm inclined to say he, because Ryu, I believe, is a male name. And then we have former Nintendo developer Motoi Okamoto is set to produce, and Neobrands Entertainment is the developer, the company that is developing the game. So they just came out of work with Capcom on the Resident Evil series, so this is shaping up to be quite an epic release in the Silent Hill universe. Super excited about that. That's all we've got on that though. And then we're talking about Silent Hill 2 Remake. Looks like a straight up remake. This looks pretty solid, and it's a PlayStation 5 exclusive. Isn't that garbage? Don't you just hate that? Honestly, I think the only game that was released on an Xbox console was Silent Hill 2, and it was like the re-release on the Xbox 360, I'm pretty sure. I have it somewhere in my boxes of games and stuff, so I can't remember if it was OG Xbox or 360. But either way, I think that was the last time a Silent Hill game was released on the Xbox, so I'm crossing my fingers that we have at least a cross-platform for Townfall and maybe even for F, but it looks like the Silent Hill 2 remake is going to be exclusive to PlayStation 5, which sucks. And that's what we got for Silent Hill, so let's move right along into Gotham Knights. We have a bit of a controversy when it comes to Gotham Knights. Rocksteady developer has come out and said, and then deleted the tweets, that the existence of the Xbox Series S console, which he refers to as a potato, is what is hindering development for the Xbox Series X console. So the little one is dragging the big one behind, which is why that when players saw that the Gotham Knights game is going to be anchored down to 30 frames per second, everybody got grumpy, and his explanation is, well, if we didn't have to develop it for both consoles, we would have been able to give you 60 frames per second, no problem. To which I said, well, didn't we get that kind of development on the Xbox One? Didn't a lot of Xbox One games get released at 60 FPS? So if the Series S is more powerful than the Series 1 or than the Xbox One, I feel like your argument doesn't hold water there, boss. So, yeah, that's kind of the controversy. I don't know if he deleted the tweets because he was made to by his company, or if Microsoft stepped in and had something to do with it or what, but that is kind of where it is. I guess that's a little bit of an explanation as to why Gotham Knights, which we talked about in the last live episode, why Gotham Knights is stuck at 30 FPS. But I mean, it's not a fighting game, it's not a sports game, it's not a competitive game by and large. So I don't understand why it's such a huge deal that it's at 30 and not 60, but I don't know. I also don't get caught up in that kind of stuff. I just like to play games. Next is a tech update, and we're talking about YouTube once again. They're rolling out a bunch of changes. We kind of talked about it in the last live episode. And I believe we've touched on a number of things in the regular episodes as well. The newest thing, now that they're adding, again, all of that other crap, is pinch to zoom. So on mobile, when you're on mobile, they're rolling out a new update that should be out, I believe, next week to everyone. You will be able to, as you're watching a video, you'll be able to pause it and zoom, and it will stay zoomed. I wasn't able to decipher whether or not you could also play it while zoomed in like that, but it will stay zoomed until you unzoom it. So that's pretty cool, not gonna lie. That's the real quickie there. And then we have one final follow-up, I hope, for the Google Stadia console platform, whatever. Google Stadia is shutting down, we know this, but we have Rockstar and Bethesda both joining up with CD Projekt Red, Bungie, Ubisoft, and IO Interactive. So because all these were developers that developed games for the Google Stadia, and now that people who have been playing their games for so long are no longer going to be able to play their games on that platform, they're going to allow you to migrate your game saves over to another platform if you already have an account on said other platform. So this is pretty cool. I don't know exactly how the logistics are going to work out for this, but if there's some sort of announcement, if it's some sort of trick or something like that, like it's difficult to do, we'll talk about it and hopefully try and clear the air. But as it stands right now, hopefully it will be pretty self-explanatory. Let's move right along into regular ass news. Speaking of big presentations, we also got something for The Sims, which was not exactly a big presentation either. It was actually kind of a little lackluster, but it is worth noting, and I didn't talk about this when it happened last week or 2 weeks ago, but as of October 18th, The Sims 4 is free to play. The base game is free to play. If you want the DLC, then you're going to have to pay for any expansions to the game, but if you just want to play the base game, you haven't played The Sims in probably a couple of decades, then you can go download the free-to-play version on all platforms. So that's pretty freaking cool. There is also a new Sims game that has been announced, and the name of that game is called Project Renee. So far, not a whole lot has been released about Project Renee, but the bits that have basically just show you how customizable the game is going to be, and the community is rightfully comparing that to the new Para Lives game, which is really the only competition The Sims has in their gaming category. So very interesting. We will definitely keep tabs on this if anything crazy happens. That being said, though, that is all we have for regular ass news. Let's talk about gaming and tech suggestions. Gaming suggestion this week is the OG Resident Evil. Fire it up however you must. If you have an OG PlayStation, if you just have to run an emulator, if you have one of the remade versions of this game, as it has been done a number of times at this point, then by all means do that. But go see where modern survival horror originated from. I mean, it's not the first survival horror game, but it is kind of the one that laid the track for everything we play these days in that genre. If you can make it up to the point where the dog jumps through the window and not poop your pants, then you have a stronger constitution than I, my friend. Either way, it is totally worth it to play for Halloween. Go play some Resident Evil 1. Comic books and books. We actually have a book follow-up for this episode. I'm super stoked. All right, follow-ups. Winds of Winter. We've been keeping tabs on this as often as possible because George R.R. Martin is apparently taking forever to write this book. And then, you know, there's still another book in the series, right? There's still one last book, The Dawn of Summer or something like that. I'm totally, that's not right at all. But, I mean, we're probably never going to see it, so whatever. But George R.R. Martin has come out and revealed that he is approximately 3/4 of the way through writing this book, which means since it's been, 12 years since he announced that he was writing this book, if it's 3/4 of the way through, we still got another 5 years before this happens. What the hell? Yeah, more like 4 years probably. But either way, not cool, George, not cool. Finish the damn book. But yeah, that's all we really have. Next, we're talking about Batman, The Adventure Continues. That's right, the comic book series that continues the animated series. Season 3 of The Adventure Continues is launching January 10th of 2023. This is just good stuff, man. If you liked the original animated series, then you're going to like this comic book series, and you've got 2 volumes to catch up on before January 10th. That being said, that's all I've got for follow-ups and corrections. Let's move into regular-ass news. We have Deceased, War of the Undead Gods. We have a very interesting turn of events in Deceased, War of the Undead Gods, issue number 3, and that is that Lobo, everyone's favorite anti-hero in the DC side of things, Lobo is immune to the anti-life virus, which is kind of to be expected because Lobo, but also implies that maybe they have some big plans in this alternate universe in DC. The Deceased stuff is some of the better stuff from the last decade or so. The last 5 to 8 years. I'm not going to go full on decade, but last 5 or 8 years for sure. So if you're not reading it, it's worth a read. Go catch up, and then you'll see what I mean. But yeah, very interesting. I don't know if we're going to get anything else beyond that, but let's have the conversation down in the description why this works and why Lobo is going to save the universe. And then we actually got a trailer in this episode for Comic Books and Books, and it is a comic book trailer. It is the Riddler Year 1 trailer. We talked about this book when it was announced. This is going to be Paul Dano's debut comic book writing excursion, and yeah, the trailer looks pretty dang interesting, not gonna lie. Also, I didn't realize when I watched the movie, I guess, but they changed Edward Nygma's name to Edward Nashton. What happened to Nygma? I don't know. Either way, I'm very intrigued by this trailer for this comic book. I might be picking it up, but it's not out yet. So let's move into comic book suggestions. Staying with Deceased, we're gonna say Deceased Volume 1. Go get the trade book, the paperback, hardcover, whichever one tickles your fancy. I generally pick up the paperbacks because they're cheaper and I'm broke. But Deceased Volume 1 is one that I have picked up and it is worth a read. I really dig it. I'm not the biggest Tom Taylor fan, honestly, at all, but Deceased is worth a read for sure. TV streaming is where we are now. We have some follow-ups over here on TV streaming. First up, we have a release date for the Mayfair Witches, as well as a new trailer, which probably should have put this in the trailer section, but whatever. Release date for Mayfair Witches is now January 8th of 2023. Super excited. Go watch the trailer. Hopefully they can update this in a similar fashion to the Interview with the Vampire stuff, because Anne Rice stuff translates rather well. That being said, let's move on. Next, for the follow-ups in TV streaming, Succession Season 4 has been announced. We'll be launching sometime in the spring of 2023. And then we have The Witcher. We just got the announcement that they are in active production currently on Season 4 and 5 for the Netflix series. And then our final follow-up for TV streaming is Flash, the 9th and final season, we now know is going to feature the Red Death, which is really weird to bring in as a farewell season thing, because dark multiverse and all of this stuff that the Red Death implies. There are a bunch of rumors around the Red Death, which we will get to in the rumor mill. But right now, all we know for certain is that Red Death is going to be in this, because we've seen pictures of Red Death on set in the Red Death costume, which is why there's rumors, because it's who is in that costume. Well, that's subject to some debate. So that is what we have for follow-ups and corrections for TV streaming. Our next trailer is the Silent Hill Ascension trailer. It's kind of more teaser, a little bit more explanation, still leaves you with a lot of questions, because I'm not still convinced that this is going to be a series in the traditional sense of the word. Actually, we know it's not going to be in a traditional sense of the word, but I don't know if there's going to be live action actors, or if this is going to be some sort of game interactive thing, or if it's just going to be like pick your own adventure a la Netflix, but through text messaging. I don't know what it is. They're billing it as a series. They're billing it as a live action, or they're billing it as a live interactive event series or something like that. Lots of buzzwords included. It's going to be live. You're going to be able to interact with it. How you're going to be able to digest it is the part that very much remains to be seen. Is it going to happen through Netflix? Is it going to happen through a game console? Who knows? But as we find these things out, we would definitely be talking about it. This is one of the other things that was announced at the Silent Hill special broadcast last week. We touched on it ever so briefly, though if you're on a syndicated outlet, you didn't hear it. We touched on it ever so briefly in an audio clip that I had to kind of inject really quick into the editing process, and it looks intriguing. I'm gonna say that much, and we're gonna move right along. Our next trailer comes from Titans Season 4. Not only are we getting Brother Blood, Mother Mayhem, and Jinx, but we also are getting a really badass looking Lex Luthor. I'm digging it. Like I said, I have a little bit of catching up to do on Titans, but yeah, this is gonna be pretty big. I really like where they're going with the DC TV stuff, at least on HBO. That is all we have for trailers. Let's talk about regular ass news. We are in TV streaming, and that means we have one downer piece to start the regular ass news. Leslie Jordan, actor Leslie Jordan, has passed. You will remember Leslie Jordan from Will and Grace. He was in American Horror Story 1984. He was in, I mean, he's done a lot of stuff. He was in quite a bit of things. And he was 67. It's very kind of foggy as to the cause of death. Apparently there was some sort of, well, no, as to the details, I guess, because cause of death is fairly obvious. He was in a car accident. But the car accident was because of a medical emergency, and that's all we can really get. So it's a sad day because, I mean, he was really funny. He was really good at what he did. Granted, he got kind of typecast a lot, but I mean, if you're good at a thing and you love to do the thing, then why not lean into it? And I feel like that's what Leslie Jordan did. Absolutely. So all of that being said, we're going to take a moment and remember the comedy that we got, the amazing career, honestly, that this man had given us. Leslie Jordan, you will be missed.
Intimate and personal and boring.
Please, it's not going to be anything like that. It's more like a party. Celebration of her death. Life. So I'll see you both tomorrow afternoon. I'll be receiving from 5:30 till 6:30.
Boy, that's gotta be a long hour for you.
All right, so that is... we got to come out of that. So we have Geiger is where we're going next. Jeff Johns and Gary Frank are bringing their Image book to Paramount, which means very likely Paramount Plus is where it is going to be released. The series, the live action series, again, that is going to Paramount, is going to be showran by Jeff Johns himself. He is going to serve as head writer on the project. And for those of us that don't know exactly what Geiger is, it is apparently the story based on nuclear fallout, post-apocalyptic world in 2050. It seems in certain aspects to resemble that of Fallout series, but it's a little more action-packed, as evidenced by the image that you're very likely viewing on screen right now. Yeah, it's definitely not Fallout, but similar story elements from what I've been able to gather. I have never read this book, so somebody please let me know, is this book worth a read? I mean, Jeff Johns is kind of always a win, but not always, just like 90% win. So yeah, I might be interested in checking this one out. Either way, it is getting turned into a live action series. Let's move on. Next is, this is the big one. It's technically has to do with everything, but I put it in TV streaming because at the time there wasn't as much in the TV streaming section as in movies, but now that seems to have flip-flopped. Either way, we're talking DC Studios. So DC Films is no more. The film studio that was created, that was led up by Walter Hamada, is no more. It is now being called DC Studios, and is going to be in charge of more than just movies. It is going to be DC movies, it's going to be DC TV shows, as well as DC animation. So all of that stuff is going to be coming from one studio. And the biggest part of this, I know I've totally buried the lead on this, but the biggest part of this is that James Gunn and his production partner Peter Safran are both going to be the heads of this new DC Studios studio. So apparently, why can I not remember that name? So apparently, James Gunn is going to be the one that is in charge of the artistic direction and making sure everything kind of flows together and works. He is going to be, for all intents and purposes, the Kevin Feige of the situation. And then Peter Safran is going to be the man who makes sure production happens. So he's going to be the man who secures financing and kind of, you know, sets budgets and all that thing. All of the boring side of the Kevin Feige job, that's going to be Safran. So yeah. huge, also not super surprising. This was a rumor that I had been hearing since San Diego Comic-Con, but I don't know, it just didn't seem like anything that was really going to be entertaining to talk about, and when it was a rumor, so we didn't really put it in any of the rumor mill sections, but it has been kind of floating around for some time that James Gunn was going to be the guy, and now James Gunn is the guy, so rumor confirmed, I guess? That's what we got on that one, though. So let's move next to actually a really interesting one with Disney and Doctor Who. So Doctor Who is moving into, I don't even remember how many seasons it was because I didn't put it in the notes because they take amazing notes. But it's the 15th Doctor that we're getting now with Nakuti. I can't remember his last name. And so it's been going for a long damn time. It's been going since like the 50s, if I'm remembering correctly. There was some time off there in the middle, but either way, one of the longest running nerd IPs out there is going into, some pretty epic territory at this point. That being said, up until this point, the only distribution rights for Doctor Who was through BBC. BBC America, BBC streaming platform, BBC, I think, exclusively in the UK. That was the only way to get it. Now, the production staff at Doctor Who, whoever's in charge of that side of things for that property, have struck up a deal with Disney so that it will still be on all of those BBC platforms, but it will also be on Disney Plus going forward. They're not going to do the back catalog. They're only going to do, I believe, since Jodie Whittaker left as that Doctor, they're going to be picking up with the new Doctor, and everything going forward is going to be on Disney Plus as well. So it's not exclusive, which is very interesting considering Disney does like to keep everything pretty exclusive to their platform. It's not the case here, but still pretty dang interesting nonetheless. That's all we've got there. Let's move into TV streaming suggestions. This one, I honestly, if you listened to the intro to this episode, the That Just Happened, this should be no surprise. Cabinet of Curiosities is our suggestion for the week. Oh my God, it's 2 episodes. It's barely over an hour worth of material, but as you're getting ready for Halloween, these 2 episodes will set the mood almost like nothing else. I think there is one other series on Netflix that is better than this as far as Halloween moods, and we're going to talk about that one next week in suggestions, but this week, check out Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. Now let's talk movies section. All right, movies. We have some follow-ups here as well. The more Silent Hill action, because that Silent Hill broadcast got us a little bit of everything, it would seem. Return to Silent Hill is going to be a thing. Christoph Gans, the man who was in charge of the first live-action movie, not the second one, because there's an obvious difference in quality there, but the first live-action director, Christoph Gans, is coming back to give us another movie. Presumably, he's going to ignore the second movie, but I don't know if that necessarily will play into his favor because, I don't know, the second movie's not bad. It's actually pretty watchable. So, very little is known about this. This is one of the things in that broadcast that we know the least about. Second only to the Ascension thing that happened over on TV streaming. That's like, what even is this? We at least know this is a movie, and we at least know that Christoph Gans is going to be directing and probably taking some sort of writing role as well. That being said, that's all we know, so let's move into Prophet is a comic book movie adaptation that we've talked about previously. Jake Gyllenhaal is set to star. That is not the follow-up. The follow-up is that they just got a new screenwriter in Kurt Johnstad. Kurt Johnstad, you will potentially know his work because he was one of the writers on the 300 movie as well as Atomic Blonde. Johnstad is coming in to replace previous writer Mark Guggenheim. Hopefully that's a good thing. Doesn't say whether the announcement rather didn't mention if this was going to be for a full rewrite, if he's just going to be doctoring the script so that it makes a little bit more sense, you can just trim it down, something. None of that information is known. All we know is that the Prophet movie is moving forward just very, very slowly. So let's do that as well, just a little bit more quickly. Next, we have trailers to talk about. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. The next trailer just dropped, and this is very interesting. We're going to be playing a lot with this quantum realm. We're going to be getting a lot of Kang the Conqueror. And potentially this is going to be the movie, if you want to believe the hype and the rumors, which we're not going to cover this in rumors, why we're talking about here, but this is potentially going to be where we see how the Shang-Chi and Ms. Marvel stuff ties into the MCU at large. So this very well could be huge. Also, rumors are having it that there's going to be a lot revealed in the post-credit scene as to the future of the MCU. So this is going to be a pivotal movie, and I think it's going to be pretty decent to watch as well. It's not just going to be all of the meta tertiary things on the side of the movie. Judging by this trailer, there's going to be a lot of substance to it as well. So I'm digging that, because I felt like Ant-Man, the last time we saw Ant-Man, he was really just there as filler, and this time he's taking a little bit more substantial spot in the MCU, and I like it. Next on trailers, we're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. Kevin Bacon? What? Oh, this is just goofy up on top of goofy and a little bit of silly on the side. Oh boy, it's gonna be a lot of fun. There's no way that you cannot just smile while watching this trailer. I don't know, go watch it. If you don't smile, maybe correct me, tell me I'm wrong. But either way, I dig it. It's gonna be a whole lot of fun. We're moving on. Let's talk about some regular ass news, and both of these are we have two pieces for regular ass news, and they're both movies in franchises that I personally kind of thought were dying, especially Saw. We are apparently getting a Saw 10 now. It is going to be a continuation of the reboot story, so maybe it's not going to tie into the original series outside of name only, except it's going to be Tobin Bell returning to the role of Jigsaw. And then there's other outlets that are saying that this is going to be a prequel of sorts, where we get the history of Billy the Puppet. And so Tobin Bell, I don't know, just a lot of weird, and don't really know a whole lot because it just got greenlit, so we will be keeping tabs on Saw 10 as things develop. And that's what we got on that. So let's move to our next piece, which is The Conjuring. This is the other one that's like, wow, that series is still going, huh? Mainline Conjuring movie, Conjuring number 4, has just been greenlit. It is again going to be New Line Cinema. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga have not yet officially been contracted to return, but at this point it seems like that is more formality than anything. It's just a matter of who's going to get paid what, I would imagine. James Wan and his production company are returning to produce, and yeah, that's really all we know, because again, this just got greenlit, but that is what we have for the movies news section. So let's bust out those recommendations. Movies suggestion for the week. Probably my favorite Halloween movie of all time. Halloween, the OG 1978 from John Carpenter. This movie just freaking works. There's no in-depth conversation about who Michael Myers is. You get the base, you get a little bit of, he's just a crazy old guy at the end of the, like, it's enough mystery is left here that it makes it intriguing. The performances are all solid. John Carpenter directing this movie just is a masterclass in how to do an independent budget for a major label or major production company. Just, yeah, it's so great on so many levels. Go watch and appreciate some Halloween, OG Halloween. And then we got some rumor mill to talk about. So, rumor mill, we have new sources on old rumors, and some of these are pretty interesting. First up, we have Star Wars, the Damon Lindelof-led movie that we were thinking originally is going to be a trilogy. I think that might be because they announced it as a trilogy. Well, it is still happening. The rumor part of this is kind of twofold. First up is that the director is going to be Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, who also directed Ms. Marvel. And then the other half of that is that it is no longer going to be a trilogy, that specifically Lucasfilm has nixed all trilogies going forward out the gate. Nothing is going to be a trilogy. Everything is going to be a one-shot movie unless it does well. And if it does well, then they'll open up the door for a trilogy for that specific movie, which seems still like they're missing the point, because if you want to do a trilogy, then the proper proper way to do it is to have a story ready. You have to plan this out to make it work. And that was the lesson we were supposed to learn from the sequel trilogy. It was like, well, they're flying by the seat of their pants, and it kind of is super obvious by that second and third movie. Maybe learn the right lesson next time, Lucasfilm. I don't know, but yeah, that's the rumor. So let's the likelihood. I think honestly, the director thing, the Charmine. I'm not going to try and say her last name again because I'm not going to say it right. But that part of it, I think honestly, if I'm remembering correctly, as I was coming up to film, I saw that this had been confirmed as real. Though I can't say that one way or the other. 100%. So we're gonna say about 90% for the director thing, but the one-off movie, also, I'm giving that one pretty high. I haven't heard this from a lot of other sources, but the source that it comes from is pretty solid, which means we're going about 80% on that one. I would be very surprised if they wanted to sink a whole lot of money into another trilogy anytime soon, unless it was guaranteed return on investment. So there is that. Our next news source for rumor is more Doctor Doom stuff. This time, though, it goes a little bit further. We have from some pretty serious sources that Ryan Gosling is being very much considered, is likely to be Doctor Doom. And then we have one of these sources goes a little bit further and says that Adam Driver is going to be the opposite side of that coin in Reed Richards. What? Honestly, you could almost flip that and it would make a little bit more sense. Driver definitely, we know he can work it with a mask. Like that is very evident by the character of Kylo Ren. So we have that established. But then like, wow, just Ryan Gosling, I don't know. There's so much weird here. They're both talented actors, and I don't see Gosling in either of these roles. I'm not saying he can't handle it. It's just there's a better fit out there somewhere. I was actually talking to a nerdy friend of mine that said, you know, they should find a Romani actor to play the role of Doctor Doom because that would make a little bit more sense. The accent would be a little closer to right and so on and so forth. So I could see that argument a little bit more than I can see Ryan Gosling as Doctor Doom. But I mean, at this point, it's kind of hard to ignore. And the source that went on to name Adam Driver's also got a pretty dang good track record with their rumor leaks. So that puts us on a percentage point. Last time we didn't pay much, any never mind really to the Gosling announcement. I think we gave it like a 30 or 40%. I'm bumping that up to 60%. I think this has strong potential to be a thing, as weird as it sounds. And then Adam Driver, I'm also giving a 60% because if the Gosling thing is that likely, that the Driver thing has got to be that likely. And they're not based on each other. They're both just the same source. Yeah, very weird. All right, so next news source also has to do with Doctor Doom. This Doctor Doom rumor, which I think we've only talked about this once, so it's just more source. This is kind of rumor based on rumor, because the last time we talked about this, we said that it was a rumor that Doctor Doom was going to be in the post-credit scene for the Wakanda Forever movie. Well, this new rumor says that rumor was accurate, but now they have removed Doctor Doom from the post-credit scene of Wakanda Forever, which is weird. Why would you do that? Probably because they don't have him cast just yet, and you know, Wakanda Forever is coming out very soon. So yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense, but this is still rumor based on rumor, and if our only way to prove this rumor is that Doctor Doom is not in the post-credit scene, I think that's a pretty provable part, but there's no way for us to prove the first bit if the second bit's true. So we're only giving the second bit a 50% likelihood because it's rumor based on rumor, and that's just a weird kind of, yeah. No. But that is all we have for new sources, so let's get into new rumors. We have Silver Surfer is the next one being rumored to be getting a Disney Plus special presentation. Silver Surfer special presentation. This is pretty weak sources, but it is multiple sources, just neither of them have a very good track record. So I'm gonna give this one a 60%, and I think that's a little generous, but again, multiple sources are saying it, so it's a little more likely than not. Next, we're talking about Nicolas Cage. This is kind of two rumors from the same source there. Nicolas Cage, what with his Nicolas Cage renaissance that's going on right now, apparently we have Nicolas Cage is being rumored to be in talks for both another National Treasure movie as well as the Face-Off rumor has resurfaced. This is not news source about the same rumor. This is a new rumor about the same subject, I guess. Yeah, so Nicolas Cage, sure, it's been a while since he's been in a blockbuster movie. He has said in interviews the only reason he hasn't done a big blockbuster movie is because he hasn't been asked to do these things. There's, I don't know, this seems a little weak, but also super hype, so I'm gonna give this higher than it probably should get. We're gonna say about 70% likely that Nicolas Cage is gonna do both National Treasure and Face-Off sequels. Red Death is our next rumor. So, we talked in TV streaming about Red Death and how the pictures of a Red Death character are on set at the 9th season of The Flash. And now the rumor is who is inside the suit is Javicia Leslie, who, if you remember, played Batwoman in the Batwoman series, also on the CW, that didn't make it for very long. She was the second Batwoman because the first one, we've already covered all this. It's irrelevant to this. Javicia Leslie, Batwoman. It will obviously not be Batwoman playing Red Death because that's silly. But, well, let me phrase that slightly differently. It will not be the Batwoman from the series Batwoman inside the suit. The character will not be the same. Yes, it will still be a version of that character, but as we know from the comic books, Red Death is Bruce Wayne from a dark multiverse. So in the Arrowverse, or the Berlantiverse, or however you want to refer to that franchise, Red Death is going to be Batwoman from a different multiverse. Dark multiverse, I don't think is super likely, though. I mean, the name of the character is Red Death, so dark is kind of implied. But yeah, let's give this one a likelihood. It's as for actual evidence as to why this could be Javicia Leslie, there is not a whole lot, and what's there isn't super strong because it kind of looks like there's a guy inside that suit, just based off of the body type. So that being said, that's not to say that they're not going to cheat that a little bit, maybe use a male stunt double for certain shots and such, and then actually have Javicia Leslie, a version of her Batwoman inside the suit as far as the story goes, because they want to keep her on. They like that Ryan Wilde character. They feel like the Ryan Wilde character did decently in spite of the fact that the series got, demolished. So yeah, I think just based on, current social climes and things, I think that is the only thing that is really lending itself to this rumor. So we're going to put it at about 55%, slightly higher than middle of the road, because there is a little bit of reason to believe that as we get closer to the release of this, we will definitely be keeping tabs on this rumor. And let's move right along. Our next rumor has to do with Wonder Man. Wonder Man over in Marvel. Apparently, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is set to be cast for this role in an undisclosed movie, which is kind of backwards, right? Usually somebody gets cast in something and we don't know what the role is, but now we're hearing that he's been cast for a character and we don't know what the movie is. So this is really weak. I feel like Yahya Abdul-Mateen is kind of a busy man, so being part of the DCU and the MCU doesn't seem super likely. I don't know, he is kind of in-demand actor these days, so it would make sense if they were trying to get him. So let's say 40% likely. This is because it's less likely than not, but yeah, that's where we're going. Next, we're talking about Storm in the MCU. Kevin Feige is apparently looking to get Halle Berry to reprise her role as Storm, which is kind of awesome. Though, I don't know, it seems like that potentially could axe some of the story potential for the character. unless they're doing some sort of multiverse thing and she's only coming for, say, the Secret Wars movie, which would kind of make sense. So will we see Halle Berry? Will we see Halle Berry come back as Storm for the MCU at large? Probably not. Will we see Halle Berry come back for some sort of cameo or small role as Storm from a different universe other than the 616 MCU universe? Yeah, I think there's a pretty good possibility for that. So we're gonna say like 65% that she'll be a cameo and like 30% that it's going to be Storm for the MCU at large. Our next one has to do with GoldenEye. That's right, we got some more GoldenEye rumors, video game nerds. GoldenEye, with the interesting release schedule for the Nintendo Switch, it would seem that they are leaving their December release window pretty wide open, and that has gotten the rumor mill a-churnin', which means that the rumor is that GoldenEye for both platforms, Nintendo and Xbox, is going to be released in December. I would say, sure, this is not really based on any insider information. This is conjecture, it sounded like, from people who want to, give insider information. So everyone's kind of chalking it up that it is going to be a thing, and I think it's possible, though I don't want to get hopes up necessarily. So we're going to put this one right at 50%. Could go either way. And actually, nerds, there is a lot more conversation to be had. We just got to do it in the other videos because we've run out of time for today. So all of that being said, thank you very much, nerds, for joining me. If you're falling behind in your nerd news, you want to catch up, you can click or tap the boxes. Should be appearing to the side of my face right about now. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe and comment and do all the things, share, like, whatever. Thumbs up is a beautiful thing. Let's have the conversation, though. Let's get in the comment section. Let's get on the social medias. Let's have the conversation about all of the things we've talked about today and do all of the things. And I will see you, nerds, later this week in a live episode. And yeah, thank you very much for joining me. Before we head out, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.